people on this call, but this is Alice Bonner, and I'm the chair of the Moving Forward Nursing Home Quality Coalition, here with Isaac Longobardi, who is our director, and Erica Horenstein, who's our specialist on participants and works with a lot of you on individual work in your states and regions. And glad to have a really good, combination of people with different backgrounds on the call today. We're really grateful for that. I see we have a number of advocates who are part of advocacy organizations. We're very, very grateful for those individuals. We have researchers, clinicians. We have people who are living in nursing homes and can share their experience, their lived experience. We have committee members. We have several committee members, so we'll invite those people to chime in as well. And it is really nice if you want to chat in, where you're from or your affiliation or anything like that. I'll just give a little bit of background and then talk about the agenda for today and start with why we pulled this together. As you know, and as I just kind of described, we are a very diverse group of different organizations that have come together around quality of life as perceived by and experienced by people who live in nursing homes. And we are about anything that we can do, actions we can take, in particular, things that are based on the NASM report that you've heard us talk about if you've been on these calls before. But in particular, we want to amplify the individual voices of people who are living in nursing homes. And we want to learn from what they go through every day and think about, optimistically think about how can we do better? How can we take whatever we've got right now and how can we do better? So as part of that, we've put together a 3-part series, and this is the first session in that series. We're calling it Amplifying Your Voice for Nursing Home Change. And, today's session is about, getting people together who can talk about things that they did, activities, programs, et cetera, and what they did and why it worked or why they think it worked. And so to share back, part of the purpose of our coalition is to bring different individuals and organizations together, even though a lot of you are doing great work in your own states and regions, but we don't always know about what is happening in other places around the country. So, today is going to be about some best practices, some ideas. Colleagues may ask you questions and look for your reflections. And then the next in our series will be about sharing stories for impact, different journalists and, other writers, for example. And then, wanting to promote our work with local leaders will be the third in the series. And that'll be really working with people, again, in your states and regions and, what we can do to really promote what we're doing. So that's the overview of the series. And so today you're going to hear from 3 of our colleagues, and I'll say a little bit about each of them to introduce all of them right now, and then we'll start with Mary Nichols. So Mary is the founder of the Caregivers for Compromise in Texas, and they do a lot of work getting essential caregiver guidelines into the state work, and she can talk a bit about that. And they work with residents and stakeholders, and she'll talk about some of the work that's happening that's legislative in their state. And she's has all sorts of interesting things in her background. She's a wildlife photographer, she's a singer, she's a mother of 3, grandmother of 2, and she has a yard full of chickens. I did not make that up. I have that in her bio. So after Mary, we're going to hear from 2 folks who work together. Peter Yearwood, who's from Open Doors, and he's lived with a disability all his life, and he, has been living on Roosevelt Island in a nursing home called Kohler Rehab, and he's part of the Open Doors network, and he's going to talk about Open Doors and the Reality Poets, and some of the other work that he's been leading with poetry workshops for youth and people with disabilities, and creating some other interesting materials. around his life's experiences. And he's also co-presenting with Alex Eshelman, who's also part of Open Doors. And Alex is a Cornell University graduate, go Big Red. And he works with reality poets for a long time and talks about the hardships that they faced. And he's an artist and a musician and a model, and he loves cats and skateboarding. So these are the really important things that we need to share with you all. And then finally, Dr. Dan Haimowitz, who's a multi-facility medical director. And Dan is part of the Pennsylvania Medical Directors Association. He's a board-certified internist, a geriatrician, and he specializes in long-term care and has done a lot of work, including policy work with nursing homes. So that's a mouthful, but you can tell that we are really, really grateful to have three different perspectives and three different approaches to share with you today about things people have done, because we're all about action. So with that, Mary Nichols, if we can turn it over to you to start. And just so people know, we have about 10 minutes for Mary. We have about 14 minutes for Alex and Peter to talk together. And then we have about 10 minutes for Dan. And so Isaac and I and Erica will do our best to manage the time. But Mary, we're so glad you're here with us. And, please take it away.
Okay, if you catch me looking down, it's because I set my timer because I talk too much. And if you know me, you know I talk too much. So our group, Texas Caregivers for Compromise, we were born out of necessity. We were born out of the pandemic, which started March 13th, technically, of 2020. I waited as long as I could and then got desperate and started a change.org petition on June the 12th. Got a little bit of traction, a few hundred people signed that. Our group was actually formed July the 12th. And then we found some people online to join our group, and those people became kind of our leadership team. Jenny and Stephanie they balance me. They are kind of our critical and analytical thinkers. I'm more of an emotional thinker. So when I kind of hit the bumpers, they bring me back in. And by, let's see, I wrote down July 28th, we started the group July 12th. By July 28th, we had 10,000 names on our petition, and we began sending that petition to the governor and to our Texas Health and Human Services. And then by September, we had 25,000 names on that petition. And so between July and September, when we actually got our essential caregiver guidelines in place, the group grew quite rapidly. We were very project driven initially, and there's a couple of things. The reasons we did that were just because we were desperate to get heard. We needed to make sure we got heard. Every one of our projects was very purpose driven. We had guidelines for that. Isaac will give you a link in a little while that will explain how each one of those projects had a different purpose, but how we decided on an audience for each one. But we were very project driven. Our group members, we made sure that they participated. We wanted everybody to be very busy, so we just weren't sitting around wringing our hands because we just felt so very helpless. And we just made sure that our group was participating. Communication was key. We made sure that our loved ones were always the focus of what we did. We featured our loved ones, we shared pictures of our loved ones, and we made sure that we kept them the center of everything we did. Those projects, like I said, we started the group July the 12th. By August the 8th, we were holding a rally on the steps of the Capitol. We just never stopped moving. We went from project to project to project to project. We didn't pause. We did have a couple of snags, and I would just caution anybody doing anything to just be real careful not to implode from within. We did have some people in our group that didn't stay focus driven. Our one and only focus at the time was visitation and long-term care. That is still our primary focus, but since we've accomplished some things, we're able to branch out from that. What we got done, we were able to get recognized by Texas Health and Human Services as family stakeholders. We were able to get our proposal. We introduced essential caregivers, the concept, to the state of Texas. We were able to get that in emergency guidelines by September the 25th of 2020. We were able to work with 2 legislators in our state to get that made into a state law. we were able to work with those same two legislators to get that put into a resolution put in front of our legislature to get that put on a ballot in November of 2021 to make that a constitutional amendment that went before our voters. 88% of the voters in the state of Texas voted to pass that. And so essential caregivers for residents in long-term care are now the 35th amendment to our Texas Bill of Rights. And we are the only state in the country that has essential caregivers for long-term care as a right in our Constitution. So we just worked nonstop, project. I mean, we were just like driven. I think Jenny texted me one night and said, "Girl, when do you sleep?" Well, I wasn't sleeping. But we just had so much work to do. However, we did have some people that weren't quite as focused as we were, and we're like, well, you know what? Let's use our signs for hospitals too. Nope, long-term care. That's all we're doing, long-term care. So there will be people that see your success, see that you're getting interviews, see that you're getting some traction with legislators and might want to capitalize on that. So we had to be real careful that we didn't, stray from our, primary focus. We also had some people that thought maybe we should, enlist some lobbyists, did not want to stray from being constituents and our power being in the fact that we're families, just families, and that legislators would listen to us because that's who we are. So we wanted to maintain that focus. We also had a group that was suing the governor of the state of Texas that was really angry that we wouldn't participate in that lawsuit. Well, if we participate in a lawsuit, then they can't talk to us because they're not allowed to, because now there's litigation. So we didn't want to lose that ability to speak to the governor's office by being involved in litigation. So there were a lot of things that we had to be real careful about not getting involved in, and that really did alienate some people. But unfortunately, staying true to our focus required us to alienate a few people along the way. But those were really the only hiccups, that we kind of had. Now that we have essential caregivers in the state of Texas, that means that people in long-term care will always, regardless of the reason, visitation is limited. It's not limited to a health emergency. It could be a natural disaster. It could be because the facility had a water main break, and I don't know, maybe there's a earthquake or something, whatever it is. In the state of Texas, they are always entitled to at least one person. They will always have access to one person. So we did accomplish that. But there are still, because we did that, there are still some other things in the state of Texas that kind of reverberated from that. The industry was supportive of that legislation. They did support it with us, but this session, they came back with some things that were kind of unpleasant. So while we wanted to just mark time and use our group to keep providing information to residents, making sure they have all the information from CMS, from Texas Health and Human Services, from Department of State Health Services, just making sure they are always informed. That's what we want to be, is just that group that kind of breaks down that information into terms that they can understand. We were only able to mark time just a little bit. Unfortunately, there were some things that came up this session we just couldn't walk away from. So we did have to expand our purpose a little bit now and branch out and take on some of these other legislative issues. The good thing, though, is with 3,100 Texas voices, we were able to get some calls out, and we were able to actually stop some harmful things that were going to harm residents. We weren't able to promote some of the things we really needed to help residents. Almost out of my 10 minutes, but I do want to make sure that I tell you we were just absurdly successful. We kept our identity. We used the color yellow for the most part. When we started out, we chose yellow because ever since Tony Orlando decided he was going to tie a yellow ribbon, that was kind of become the color of reuniting after a long separation. Also, the Yellow Rose of Texas is kind of the same thing. That song was born of a legend about a separation. You can Google that. It's tied to Santa Ana, which is very much part of Texas history. So our color is kind of yellow. But we have two things that we really try to do: communicate with our group members. Even the ones that, haven't checked in with us in several months, we want to make sure that everything in our page and on our website helps them to know what's been going on. Then the other thing is making sure that everyone in our group is part of our group relationship. It's not some foreign thing that they don't feel part of. Everybody has ownership in the group. They participate in the group, and because it's their group. So we do want to make sure that the two things we focus on are communication and relationships. Those are the things that make them take ownership and help them to feel like this is something that they belong with and to, and they own. So I think the main key to our success is those two things: communication and relationships, and then everything else has just kind of been derived from that. So that my alarm is going off and it's telling me I've talked long enough. So we're going to move on to the next person. And then I think there's some Q&A time at the end.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that was a great overview of a tremendous amount of work. I know, because you and I have spoken for longer periods of time about that work. There is one question I just maybe will ask before we move to the next speaker, which Isaac put in here, which is at the political junctures that you talked about that were really the key junctures. How did your group make decisions together? How did you build consensus?
So we have three of us on our leadership team: me and Jenny and Stephanie. My mom was in a nursing home. Jenny's mom was in assisted living. Stephanie's son is in a state-supported living center for people with intellectual disabilities. So we have one person that's kind of got the insight in each one of those types of facilities. A lot of times we just throw ideas, out to the group, but that hasn't always been the best way to go about it. So we usually, the three of us, discuss things, or I'll throw something out to them and they'll be like, it's not a good idea, Mayor, you want to drop that? Or I'll throw it out to them and they'll be like, let's run with it. And then we'll put it out in front of the group. So we don't have a board. We don't have big meetings about anything. In a lot of ways, it's like a benevolent dictatorship. The more people that are involved in the group, the more ways there are for you to just kind of scatter and go in a lot of directions. So it's primarily just the three of us that kind of direct this group.
All right. Well, great. You may get more questions about that, but thank you so much. And next we're going to, and again, you gave a great example of empowerment being important. And I think we all want to, that, should resonate with us. And that you just did this. You just went out and started and said, I'm just going to start, and you built it. Sometimes people say, oh, we can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of that. Just we're not going to engage in those conversations. We're going to say, what does it take? And let's just start. So thank you for all of those great ideas. So Peter and Alex, we'll turn it over to both of you to give us some ideas about Open Doors and some of the other things that you guys have done and why you think it worked.
Okay. I'll hit it off. Okay. My name is Peter Yearwood. I'm an Open Doors member, reality poet. Just let me give you guys a little bio on Open Doors. Open Doors started in 2016 by a lady named Jenny Lee Brewster, who was also a resident on Roosevelt Island. Now, talking about somebody working tirelessly, that lady, I also felt like she never slept because she worked so hard to get us to where we at. So Open Doors actually invest in the creativity and leadership of Black and brown people in wheelchairs. And we also inspire justice for our communities, more just for our communities. So when Open Doors first started in 2016, it actually started out as a creative workshop. That's how we became reality poets. At the time, Jenny Lee was a volunteer at Open Doors. And she noticed that there because this Kohler is a multi-generational nursing home, so she noticed that there wasn't any programs for the younger generation, which gave her the idea to talk to the younger guys, and find out what maybe their interest is, what they would like to do, And that took a little doing, but they finally started to come into the library and engage in the poetry workshops. And they found out how they got really so excited behind this because they now had a place to tell their stories, and from that, we did that for a while. We did many outreach across the city with younger and even older generation. We have done outreach at places like Cornell, which is almost like a second home for us. They're so very supportive of open doors. If it's giving us a space for an event or just lending their voices, they're always there for us. They always support us. Yeah, places like Cornell. We've done outreach at John Jay College in New York. We've done quite a bit of outreach in the city. So we did that for a while up until 2020. When COVID came. Now, when COVID came to town, as you all know, the city went on lockdown. Nobody was able to go out, nobody was able to come in. So we had to switch to Zoom. Right? We started doing Zoom meetings, and that kind of put the outreach that we used to do on hold because we couldn't do in-person events anymore. So during the COVID crisis, while we were locked down in here, it became apparent to us that we had to do something. We had to speak for ourselves because nobody else was doing it, right? There was no administration, the only information we were getting was what was on the news, and that was a lot of times not accurate, so we started taking matters into our own hands, and we decided that we had to. At first, we were a little leery of doing it because we were afraid of repercussions, But then, when you're put in a situation where you are fighting for your life, it's like nothing else matters. It's like what can you do to me now? There's nothing you can do to me. I'm fighting for my life here, And we were literally doing that because we were put in that situation. I mean, they were locking down healthy people and sick people in the same space. What did they think was going to happen? A miracle? A lot of people got sick. People died. I, for one, got sick. 3 days after they locked the unit down, I had COVID. So that's when we decided that we had to do something, and some of the things that we accomplished was largely to our community, to the community outside on Roosevelt Island, starting with Jenny Brewster, right? Because it started with a press conference that de Blasio had when he said that this place was empty. I will be brought back online. He had no idea that it's beyond me how the mayor of your city doesn't know who live where, what's empty or what's not. So he started with an open letter from Jenny Brewster to the mayor's office, informing him that this place is not empty. And so he backtracked, he held on, and then we're going to send COVID patients in here, right? Into this facility where there's so many vulnerable people with so many underlying conditions that, contracting COVID would be definitely a death sentence for you. Some of our members are like that. So when we informed him about this, he decided to, he changed his tune and, they weren't going to send COVID patients in here, But that song was still going on for a while.
It's the holiday.
And we even had a rally out here, we had some of our electeds attend that rally. The borough president, Ms. Bowers, she's also a very supportive person of Open Doors. She came out and she let it be known that, there shouldn't be any COVID patients being sent into nursing homes. So we did that, we held that rally, I guess it was very, because they changed it too. They weren't going to send COVID patients in here anymore, but they were going to send patients that might have had COVID, and it's clear now to come in. But that didn't happen anyway, because I was still sending COVID patients in here. Right? So, and then they made this announcement that they were going to open a separate, something called RIMC, which stands for Roosevelt Island Medical Center. You know, and they made it sound like it was somewhere off campus, but it wasn't off campus. It was right here in the building, right on top of me right now, where I'm sitting. This RIMC is right there. I mean, there was so much misinformation that they were giving about Kohler. It wasn't funny. So we decided we had to set the record straight, you know, and we did. You know, we even had a meeting with the CEO of Health and Hospitals, Dr. Katz. You know, he came and had a meeting with us. He even came here, you know, so we met with him, spoke with him, and he was basically like, you know, for a better way of putting it to me, like he was saying, sorry about your damn luck, you know, because it's like, you know, he didn't give us no hope or nothing, you know, nothing for us to go on. You know, people were already, you know, were mentally drained. You know, I've seen so many changes in people in their mental health, you know. So through all of that, we documented most of that stuff, right? Because the director of the movie that we have coming out called Fire to Dry Grass. By the way, guys, put it on your calendar. It will be premiering on PBS on October 30th at 10 p.m. Okay, so yeah, so Jay came to me one day and he said, "Pete, we got to document this stuff, man. We got to document what's going on in here." You know, at first I was a little leery, but you know, we went ahead and did it, and we made the documentary. You know, some of us have strapped GoPros on our wheelchairs. You know, other residents are recording on their phone from the units. You know, we got all this footage, and we put it together, and we came up with Fire to Dry Grass. But to all that also, other things were made possible. You know, I think, and from what I've heard, that Kohler is probably one of the only nursing homes, if not the only nursing home, to have a task force, right? And that happened because of our borough president at the time, Gail Brewer. They had wanted to come inside Kohler and see what exactly was going on, and they were refused entrance. So the next best thing she decided to do was create a task force. Well, in that task force now we have accountability. We have accountability now because the CEO of Kohler had to attend those meetings. We had people for representatives from HHC, which is like the parent company for most nursing homes and hospitals in New York. So we now had accountability. And I think, you know, a task force, you know, for me is even more powerful, if you will, than a resident council. You know, because in the task force, you actually have people who can do something about the situations in there. And we have made little baby strides in here. You know, we were able to get rid of the last CEO, right? We got rid of him. He claimed he resigned, but I think he was under too much pressure, so he did resign. And we now have a new CEO. This guy seems to be, you know, he works with us. You know, we have regular meetings with him. You know, we see him doing things inside here. You know, try to meet us some of the way. You know, because after all, you know, he can't meet us all the way because he does have people he has to answer to also.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Peter, this is fantastic. All this information. You've got a great chat going here, by the way, with Miko and Melody and other people. So it's really resonating with people, and we want folks to go to the PPS link if they can. I want to make sure, is it okay if we move over to Alex so that he has an opportunity to say a few words as well?
Sorry, Alex. Go ahead, man.
No, don't worry about it. Thanks, Alice. Nah, and I was just Pete basically let y'all know everything that happened, you know, the whole story of like from the start to how we got here. And I feel like that's really important because honestly, I feel like if it weren't for the work that Open Doors have been doing from 2016 until the beginning of the pandemic, like I think that pretense is what gave, you know, this small group that grew and like developed an artistic voice, like the ability and conviction to, you know, step into a bigger project and like document what was going on, which is now ballooning into a tool that can actually leverage change. You know, it didn't really start as like, but like I feel like that gets at like, you know, be the change you want, because at the end of the day, like Kohler is a pretty unique facility. Like, yeah, it's got a lot of problems, and like Pete says, there's this great intersection of like age range and people who just like don't have things to do, right? So then like that vacuum creating like an artist collective, you know, it really is a really unique thing. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like just being in it, you kind of can't really see it for what it is from the outside perspective. So then all that is to say, like really getting at what worked, I feel like you kind of have to reach flow state with the whole thing and like remember that you can only do one thing at a time. And then like just be like cool with who you are. You know, acknowledge your shortcomings and just remain on the margin of your growth and impact. Like it's like I feel like if I just show up and support the poets, and I'm doing what I have to do, you know. And it's really dope having Pete there, because like our director Vince, who I believe is not on this call, you know, Vince is also a resident Kohler. He's super busy. He has like his own to-do list that's just like extensive, and it's been really cool to see everyone's like professional development as well. um let's see, yeah, sorry, I see something in the chat, how often we forget about art, music, dance. No, seriously, like the arts, like I don't know, we're all artists, and that's what makes it work, you know. I mean, we don't really like over like, because like that's the thing, I feel like we're at our worst when we're trying to be some organization that we're not, like knee deep in advocacy. Like, yeah, that's part of it, but like you kind of need to like maintain that balancing act and remember who you're at. Also, I hope I'm not going too long. Yeah, feel free to like cut me off whenever.
Don't worry, I have no problem with that. You're fine. You got 2 more minutes.
Yeah, no, and like because there's a lot to say, you know, and like coming into this call, I wasn't even sure if I like had my thoughts right. I'm like, oh, like, um, it's not. I don't feel like it's as much about like the precise things you did, where it's like, oh, I did blank, 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 and blank. Like you don't really know what you're gonna do next, you know. You kind of just like move through the entire thing like day by day. Um, like seriously, like it's crazy because like I've been working for Open Doors for a second, and like I started as a volunteer and an intern, then part-time, and now like really like working on the team in a heightened leadership role. It's pretty cool. It's really like it's like a privileged opportunity, and you have to like, I don't know, it's interesting because like our project, like we are fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit, but we're not really a nonprofit. And I think that if you like, it's like we are literally just a group of artists based out of a nursing home and their allies, right? And it's like we rely a lot on our community support. Like I said, it's a pretty unique opportunity to just like even being in the city, particularly on Roosevelt Island. It's like a small community within New York. And it's interesting because like the island itself, if you will, like I guess it was originally crafted with accessibility in mind, even though there are contradictions in that. You know, you've got the tram, you can get over to like actually be in the city. There's like, you know, a shuttle bus. So like there are tools at your disposal to like navigate this community. And we like, yeah, no, I think it's cool. Like I've just been following the lead of the poets, like, and like figuring out what works and what doesn't, and they let me know, especially Vince and Pete. But nah, it's a pretty cool group of people though. I see Francine's on here. Like it's like really dope, and like you just gotta like take the time to like get to know everybody and just like be a real ass person, because like I feel like it's definitely just like you can tell, but like no, it takes time, so it's like a degree of patience in that. Like it totally doesn't happen all at once. It's just like I feel like to see what works honestly requires you to look at what hasn't worked, and you can just tell sometimes like if like you can tell when it's not working, you know, which is a bummer. But like and I'm being like kind of vague on purpose, but like you like you know when it's not working.
Right. Well, you're doing fantastic work. Again, the chat is really buzzing here today, and we love the focus on the humanities. And you know, these are people's homes. They're not. They shouldn't feel institutional, and they shouldn't feel overly medical. They're people's homes. and people, you know, have their health and their well-being and their mental health to think about. And you guys are doing such great work with that. And Francine, we're really glad that you're here too. And I just want to extend a special welcome to anybody and everybody from Open Doors. Miko Cook is chatting in. She does a lot of work with them, and several of you do that. We also have long-term care ombudsman on this call. We have representatives of the QIOs and people from area agencies on aging. I mean, this is a really eclectic group, which is exactly what we wanted. So we really appreciate that, as well as all the researchers and clinicians and others. And speaking of researchers and clinicians, our final speaker, Dr. Dan Haimowitz, is going to talk about some of his reflections and some of the work that he's done over many years. So really appreciate, Dan, that you're with us today. So take it away.
You know, I did not think I was going to start off with this, but I don't believe my stuff is nearly as dope as Alex's is. So if you guys are here for the dope, I can't bring it. I'll do my best, but I wasn't prepared. So that being said, so my story starts actually in 1986. Probably many of you weren't alive at the time since it's such a young group, but I was doing my final block in my residency in my training. So that is where I met my fellow in hematology. That was Dr. Marilyn Heine. So Marilyn worked me like a dog. You know, we were up to like 10 o'clock at night looking at these icky blood smears on glass slides, and I was terrible. So I was done, I left, and I came back home, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, you know, thank goodness I will never see her again. So then a couple years later, I was in the emergency room at my local hospital, and I say, hey, somebody says, hey, Dan. Oh my gosh, it's Marilyn. Marilyn, what are you doing here? And turns out she had done both hematology and emergency room. So she's an emergency room doctor. Huh. I mean, actually, I like Marilyn. Now, it turns out, though, Marilyn is like, I don't know what the right term is, the godmother of advocacy in my area. Nobody else did advocacy. Certainly the doctors didn't. So Marilyn got the doctors together, and she kind of like pulled us, you know, by the nose to do advocacy. So she had physicians for Kostemeyer and physicians for Greenwood and physicians for Mike Fitzpatrick and physicians for Patrick Murphy and physicians for Mike Fitzpatrick again. And now it's physicians for Brian Fitzpatrick. And she organized meetings, and we had, we went to fundraisers. You know, the doctors who had the big fancy homes helped them. So that was not mine. But, you know, all the rich guys did that. And she made us go. I just did what Marilyn told me to do. And we went to legislative, she arranged legislative meetings. I mean, Marilyn's amazing. You know, she's super organized. She knows all the bills. She knew all the legislators, and she dragged some of us, you know, in her wake. Okay, which a couple years later, I was on the AMDA is the Society for Post-Acute and Long-Term Care Medicine, and I was on the AMDA board. So the AMDA board has a Hill Day where the people on the board go to the Capitol. So there was like, I don't know, 8 of us, and everybody went to meet their Congress per people and senators. And not one of us actually met their senator, their congressman, because she always meet their staff. Now, talk about that in a second, and staff are key. But nobody met their actual elected representative, except for me, because I did. So that was Mike Fitzpatrick, who brought me into this fancy lounge, stuff like that. And then I had my ask, because that's what you do, you know, when you're doing advocacy, you know, what are you going to ask for? So I had this piece of paper, and I said, I want you to support whatever it was, intraoperability of electronic health records or something like that. So Mike says, sure, I'll send a letter. And the reason he did that is because he knew me. You know, I've been to fundraisers for him. I've been to stuff. He knew what I was all about, and he knew we could trust what I had to say, which I thought was amazing. You know, it like validated the whole political process for me. So fast forward till 2020, and the pandemic, you know, the world is going up in flames. So I'm like, I want to do something. So I said, oh, all right, I'll call up his brother. Now Brian Fitzpatrick was my congressman. So I called him up, and I was lucky enough to get his district manager, Kyle Melander, on the phone. Kyle is Brian's staff person. He's amazing. And we have been meeting with him weekly since the pandemic started, every Wednesday at 2:30 in the afternoon. So I invited Alex Bardak, who's on the call, and Sue Emmer, who's AMDA's lobbyist, and I said, can you join me? And they've joined me. So I just called national staff because I thought it was a good idea, and they've joined me. Now, Alex says, so it's not like we've had separate meetings every Wednesday. Alex thinks it's more like it's been one continuous meeting. It's like, for those of you who know AMDA, it's like a House of Delegates meeting on Thursday, where it doesn't actually end. It just goes into recess week after week after week after week. And it's been great. Kyle's been amazing. We talked about, he knows everybody. It's not just federal, it's state. So Kyle knows people in the state and the federal issues. So we talked about all things COVID long-term care, visiting, testing, state regs, PPE, price gouging, all kinds of stuff. He helped us get somebody from AM to be on the White House coronavirus commission. We got him to write 2 letters to CMS about our issue. Our issue at the moment is getting what we call a medical director registry, which is so complicated. It's a list of who the medical directors are. It's like the simplest concept in the whole wide world, but we can't get CMS to say okay about it. So through Kyle, I met Representative Wendy Thomas, who isn't even my state representative. I don't know how he hooked me up with her. And we were kindred spirits, and she helped me write a state law, a state bill that passed the Pennsylvania state. Now, I learned things from that. I learned that the timing is critical because it passed the House, it never got to the Senate because of the elections, and hasn't been submitted since. But what Kyle really did too, what Congressman Fitzpatrick did, introduced a national bill, that's HR 177, the Nursing Home Disclosure Act, which is a national bill to try to get a medical director registry. And it could not have been done without Congressman Fitzpatrick, and I don't think we could have done it without Kyle's help. It just tells you how important the staff is when you're doing these things. So I thought, all right, I should thank Kyle. So I wrote an article, if you guys can see that, in the local newspaper, which basically was big things that says, thank you, Kyle. Now that's dope, I think, right, Alex? That's dope. So, and I think Kyle was appreciative. I try to help Kyle. He tries to help me. We have, try to have a good relationship because it's all about relationships. So speaking of that, I was telling Mary I would surprise her about the Essential Caregivers Act. So I have this other meeting, which Alice has told me I am not allowed to utter these words. So it's about people, no. It's about people who live in communities who need assistance, okay? I'm circling that. So there I meet Maitli Weissman, I meet Melody Taylor Stark, I meet Karen Plank, and they refer me to Irma Rappaport. And she says, hey, can you help us nationally for the Essential Caregiver Act? And I'm like, sure, why wouldn't I do such a thing? I'm a connector. So we get Congressman Fitzpatrick, who sponsors it. Then I also talked to AMDA and Vicki Walker, who's the chair of the Public Policy Committee, and say, hey, can you support it? So then AMDA endorses it. So it's all about asking and connecting, right? So yesterday I'm at that same community helping people with, stuff. And Karen's frustrated. And she was much more better acted about it. She never gets frustrated. And she says, we have this Essential Caregivers Act. Why isn't it being passed? The person who co-wrote it is important. They're on the House Ways and Means Committee. So I go, well, let me explain to you how these things work. And I talk about how the bills work and the time it takes, blah, blah, blah. Now, why do I know this? Because 1.5 hours earlier, Kyle had explained it to me at our meeting. So if it hadn't been for the meeting, for Kyle to explain it to me, I could have explained it to Karen and Melody who were on the call. So, it's all connecting stuff. Are there barriers to this? Sure there are. There's time and flexibility. There's your skill set. If none of you have read The Tipping Point, it's interesting, by Malcolm Gladwell. It's a very easy read. It's from a while ago. There are different kinds of people he describes. I'm a connector, and if you want me to, I'll read you what a connector is. It really fits me. But if you don't have that skill set, you can still be active, but you can do this on your own. Now, there's this Margaret Mead quote, which Alice says everybody knows, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. But the person who very disagrees with that is my wife, who would have had an argument with Margaret Mead because she thinks I'm wasting my time. So it's a source of never-ending conflict because she doesn't see anybody else do that. She's like, why are you the only one doing it? which is why I'm so thrilled about moving forward, because it's that group of people like you who we all do the same thing. We're all trying to accomplish the same dope purpose. So I think that's good. I've been lucky. I've been super lucky to get somebody like Marilyn, who just coincidentally is now on the board of the American Medical Association, which I think is incredible. I've been lucky to get somebody like Kyle, who's been willing and able to do things. I've, been working with Congressman Fitzpatrick, who's managed to work. He runs one of the 5 families in Congress, by the way. I know it's mafia-esque, but it's a good thing. And, he's on Ways and Means. So there's lots of stuff that can still be done.
Yes.
My takeaway points to you are this can be done. Sometimes it's through force of will. You should find a mentor and somebody to help you with that. It's a slow process. Like when we did this medical director bill, I'm like, okay, this would be great. We'll do it tomorrow. And Alex and Kyle goes, no, Dan, 3 years would be good. Like,
Right.
3 years,
Right.
That's a long time for such a simple thing. But that's what we have to do. You got to play the long game when you're doing advocacy. Think of yourself as a subject matter expert. And, I'm a doctor, so I could do subject matter for doctor stuff. But I think family members, you're a subject matter expert for families. So, you say what your passion is. I like to think, and I'm naive, is that, I use the power of right. I want to do the right thing for the right reason, and I can sleep with myself at night. I think that's the way to go.
That's great.
So how is that? My timer went off. I thought it was pretty good time-wise,
I
right?
think you have very good timing, Dan.
And I name checked everybody except for Penny Cook, who I knew on the call. So notice how I slipped that in too.
Well, we're gonna turn it over to our group. But Dan, thank you so much. Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers today. This is one of the liveliest groups of presenters we've had on these coalition calls that we have almost every month or twice a month now. And so thank you all so much. And each person brought a very different perspective. We heard from people who live in nursing homes, people who work with individuals who are doing poetry. We heard from a clinician. We heard from a family care partner, and all of it, really nicely integrated. I think we wanted to save some time. We have about 10 minutes left to have comments from any of you who've been listening in, any comments that you would like to share about your work, or, what you think about maybe starting to do some of this work. That's really our goal with these 3 in a series of amplifying your voice. You heard about people who just said, just going to do it, and started doing the work. So, and Marilyn wrote in about outstanding leadership and advocacy by Dan. And, thanks for sharing all of those things in the shout out. So all of that's great. There's a lot of activity in the chat. I hope people have an opportunity to read through, but lots of, comments about pieces of legislation. And, part of why we've come together as a coalition is to do this peer-to-peer networking and sharing so that we can all learn about one another's work and build on it. If we have 63 states and territories, we don't need to have 63 different, bills on caregiving or something like that. I'm just using that as an example. We want to build on one another's, voices and work. So I just like to really encourage anybody, particularly folks from any of the advocacy organizations. I see we have several of you on the call today. People who are journalists and have radio shows are on this call, people who do policy work, QIO members. So just, thoughts about what you might want to do if you're inspired by our colleagues on the call today, things you want to move forward.
Alice, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
So I actually do a lot of different things. So one of the things that I had done about 20 years ago is I founded a long-term care consortium in my area. And the reason was I thought we all do the same work. Why not? Right. And I wasn't as good at mission, vision, or value statements at the time. So my mantra at the time was save time, save effort, save money. And the concept was, okay, if a nursing home has to do, let's say 12 in-services, why not get 12 people together and each do one and share? Now we branched out into things. It turns out the consortium folded because of what I think is an abject failure of leadership. They folded when COVID started, when I thought they should have been the most important time. But I'm actually redoing it in my county. So we're working on, we have a hospital partnership and we're adapting it for long-term care. So you see what I mean? There's lots of different things I think that you can do if there's a need. I think any of us can step up and just try to, anything you do is better than nothing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, I know we also have some people from the coalition on the call. So Jeanette Sullivan Martinez is on our steering committee. She's there with Liz Stern. And I don't know if you guys have any comments, or Jeanette, anything you want to add listening to the speakers today?
Well, I was going to say, Dan, I thought you were very dope, and I really enjoyed your presentation.
Dope is my middle name, by the way.
Love it. Love it. I think a lot of wonderful things were said today. Just the fact that people either on this call are considering any form of advocacy for residents living in nursing homes. I think that, and or even in their communities, that people in the communities that go home from a nursing home to their own place, they need support as well. But specifically, I'm talking nursing homes. And just some great thoughts, some just really great thoughts. But I do want to give a shout out to my friends at Open Doors. It's great to see Pete and Alex and Francine on the call. Miko, good to see that you're here as well. So like you said, it's all about relationships and connections. And it's good to see that some of the ones that I've been making and have been developing are also on this call as well.
Fantastic. And Jeanette is, she's on all the steering committee calls as well as many others. And it's her voice is invaluable for sure. Thank you so much. I know Charlie Galligan, I see you're here. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of this that you want to share. No?
I can't top any of those people. I'm just, I think it was really informative and a lot of comedy, which I'm always a big fan of because I think it helps keep things light. And so I'm just happy to get to know more people, and thank you for everything you all are doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I thought I saw Mary Lou. I don't know if she's dropped off, but Mary Lou is one of our members. And Penny Cook, you're on the call. I don't know, Penny, if you have anything that you want to add.
Sorry, Alice, I had to take myself off mute and I had to join late, so I can't wait to hear the recording because I think I missed so much. But just having so many voices on this call, seeing so many people that are involved, one of the things I can say as being a co-chair of the committee that's working on person-centered and equitable care is please continue to be involved in the Moving Forward initiative. And tell other people too, tell everyone that we want to hear your voice. So I'm just so impressed by this. And like I said, can't wait to hear the recording.
Great, thank you so much. And Penny's one of our co-chairs of our person-centered care resident directed living group as well. So we have 4 minutes left. And again, just any questions that anybody has for any of the speakers today, or any work that you're doing that you want to share with others who are on the call.
It's great that we heard the underlying theme from all four of us, that one of the keys to everything we've done was both communication and relationships. So I thought that was interesting that every one of us brought that up. So apparently that is something really important when we're in this work, is just fostering really healthy relationships and making sure that we have good communication in those relationships. And I just thought that was really great that every one of us brought that up.
I think that's true too. And we did not rehearse that, for those of you who think we might have tried to coordinate that. We did not. It just happened naturally. So I wanted to reflect on Irma Rappaport put in about Sonia Barsness, who's I see is on our call today, who does work all over the country with dementia and Dementia Friendly America and other work. So I don't know, Sonia, if you have anything that you want to add here today, but just a big thanks to you for all the work that you do supporting these different initiatives.
All right, thank you. And I guess all I can say is I'm just so inspired by all of you. And, I have a dream, and my dream is that nursing homes are going to be transformed because of people like you, and that we just have to get more people like you, to get out there and to share our voices and to demand change. So thank you so much for setting this precedent that is so, so important. So thank you.
All right, wonderful, wonderful to have you on this call, Sonia. We've done other work together. So, and you know, when you say it's about you, you mean you're talking to everybody on this call. It is about us. It's about every one of us as individuals in our organizations. It's really critical. So, Dan Haimowitz, can you make your comment in 30 seconds, sir?
Of course. I think it's to follow up with Mary. It's communication and education. I think those are the two most important things too. The other thing is something that I thought was interesting. I was asked in my county to be on their mental health advisory board. And the interesting thing is I know nothing about their world and they know nothing about mine. So they're like, when I say, oh, do this, do that, they're like, where have you been? So my point is that there are other groups, I think, who don't understand or don't even know about what we're doing. And I see it as an opportunity. That was 30 seconds, right?
That was brilliant. Yes, of course. Wonderful. So I'm just going to I'm going to make sure Isaac and Erica don't have anything else to add. But this has been a really fantastic, hour of our time today. We want to thank everybody so much. And we hope you'll come back and give us other suggestions how we can keep this going. And next time, maybe since Alex, you're a musician and Mary has chickens, and maybe we can dive into some of that other stuff as well, because that's really wonderful. Everybody has such great varied backgrounds. But Isaac, anything over to you to close us out?
Two notes, housekeeping. One, our action plans will go live. The work that our committees have been doing to really generate some action of our own. They'll go live in July. So we're excited to hear from you then about what you think of them and continue the conversation about that work. And the other thing is, this is about building connections, and where we can be a connector for you, please never hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to make the connections that will make this work happen. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, and we're noting about the fun and the humor. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna try to do that on more of these calls. But again, many thanks to Erica and Isaac and Sumire, our team that works very hard on all of this. And I hope you all have a great Memorial Day weekend. And we'll be back at it in the next couple of weeks. So thank you all so much. Please keep in touch.
Thanks. Bye.